Yo, what's poppin'? All my peeps, it is I, your host with the most renaissance man who always thinks he can, and double champion of the peeps. Got my Patriot Peeps Gillette Gazette Championship here with me today because I just came from that, which you can check out on Spotify. And I got my title here. And obviously, my titles are not the only thing in the art of streams with me. Is the best of the West. You cannot forget about Sara Marshall, repping the blue brand. What's poppin', girl? How we doing?
I wish that I had a championship belt, but all I have is a Divas title, and I don't really want to represent that, nor do I want that to be my representation.
No, I see. That's a good reason to not use that because you don't want to be a diva. You're not a diva.
No. Nah.
You want to be a woman's champion.
Yep.
And honestly, this is the U.S. title, but we know arts and crafts time in the Pits Cave. That was fun with my friend Tina. And then this is nostalgia because when I get my first WWE title, it's gonna be this, and oh my god, I'm gonna be insufferable. But until my insufferable days, we have to talk about SmackDown. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah.
See, not only are you and I evolving, the show's evolving too. Look at this. We're getting clips in the middle there. Yeah. It's incredible. And SmackDown, more or less, I wouldn't say was incredible. I would say it was very good.
I would say it was okay.
Interesting.
It was okay. You know,
Right, well,
I want more Imperium. I would like some more LA Knight. I just want to see, especially Imperium. I think SmackDown is lacking Imperium.
Sarah, what if I broke your heart right now and said that Imperium is not needed? It was not needed last night on the card.
I wasn't saying that they needed that. I was just saying it would be nice if they actually were in matches and stuff, at least over the last couple of weeks, instead of just having backstage segments or watching matches and complaining about not having matches. I would have preferred that they had a match,
Yeah, like put them against. I know why they did Judgment Day, but next week put them against Legado de Fantasma.
I mean, maybe
that would be a banger match.
They probably won't be doing that though. I don't know. But anyway, let's get into SmackDown. Of course, it was starting with the Bloodline because I think that's just how every show starts.
You have to have every show start with the Bloodline.
I guess so. So we finally see the return of Jey Uso to SmackDown because he, has been gone for a while, kind of like his tribal chief Roman Reigns, who likes to never show up for anything.
It's got to hold down the island of relevancy.
Yeah, okay, which apparently is meaning I'm the champion, but I don't go to the shows that I'm champion of. So, Paul Heyman welcomes him and Jimmy to SmackDown, and you could tell there was a noticeable weirdness between Jey and Paul, mostly from Jey, I would say, which I thought was really interesting because I think it was meant to be obvious to the viewer that there was something there. And I like that because I think that results from what happened on Monday, which we know Jey was on a break basically for a couple weeks from shows because he was weighing his options of, do I stay with the Bloodline and my family? Do I take Sammy's side? So I kind of liked that he didn't seem overly thrilled to be back.
Yeah, that was a weird little twist they threw in because it seems like you would think, oh, everything's all dandy again, but I feel like Jey is upset with Roman. We're getting a little tease, a little appetizer of the eventual main event Jey versus Roman.
Well, and yeah, so I liked that, and I think that it kind of still did play off. He still acted that way, I think, even when he went to the ring, which we'll get to in a minute. But he said that he wanted to see Roman, but of course Roman was not there because Roman Reigns doesn't like to show up. And then he tells Caleb Braxton, who tried to get a word in before they went off and did whatever in the boiler room. Or the backstage truck area, wherever they go in the back, because they're always just randomly somewhere other than in a locker room area. That everything that he would need to say, he was going to be saying in the ring. So when that finally happens, we have Jimmy and Jay in the ring. Jimmy starts talking first and saying, "The Usos are back, and the bloodline is in your city," is what he says. Minus Solo and
Exactly
Roman.
like that.
Yeah, he said just like that. And then Jay went on full defensive mode because, of course, people started chanting Sammy, and people are still reeling about the betrayal from Monday night, which was heartbreaking, you
It
know?
was a little heartbreaking. It
Yeah,
was.
and so
I'm not gonna lie.
he was defending his choice, but he said he basically had no choice. He had to turn on Sammy because family is family, and when your family needs you, you are always there for them. So, you know, he couldn't stick with Sammy because Sammy is not blood. He says his ass ain't blood and it never will be. So,
That's a
you
good
know,
callback. Great
yeah,
callback.
yeah. Said that Sammy is selfish and that he didn't fall in line, and everything would have been fine had he done that. So they go on to blame Sammy, say that they got rid of their Sammy problem. Now it's Cody is their problem. And then here comes the champ doing double duty. Cody Rhodes shows up looking mighty dapper, might I add.
He's always, maybe he just, the American Nightmare also adds dapper to his
Right?
name.
Wouldn't that be nice if it's dapper instead of dashing?
Dapper Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I like it. And that's the thing. I mentioned this to my sister. I like that wearing a suit has like become his thing. Like he's just like casually in the back in a 3-piece suit, like just chilling. That's just what he wears. It reminds me of Jericho during that era when he was wearing suits every
Yes.
single he wasn't in gear. And that's like what Cody's become. Because
Yeah.
you know, that's anytime you're seeing him recently. And I was like, how much money do you spend on these suits, sir? Because you have a
He's
new like
wrestling in them too, or
I
taking
know.
bumps at least.
And yeah, so he comes out and he's like, "Hey, if you're going to talk about me, you might as well say it to my face." And he said that he doesn't listen to Roman Reigns. He doesn't abide by him. He listens to the fans, which I was like, "Cody,
Damn right he does.
we've come
Classic
so
baby
far." And he said they seem like they want to fight. So starts taking off his jacket, which I was like, damn, that's an expensive suit that you're just throwing on the ground, but that's okay. And Jimmy says if you come any closer, you're not going to make it to WrestleMania. But in comes Sami Zayn in his all black attire, and they just start out brawling. And
Good
it ends
old-fashioned
with
brawl.
it ends with Cody and Sammy standing victoriously in the ring. Cody looking jacked as fuck, dude. Like, I know you're a man, but like he's in the best shape of his life, which is insane to me because
Oh yeah, no, I
the man is
respect
like,
a good body when I see one.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, he's nearing 40. This is why we hate men, because men get better with age and women don't. I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
But yeah. So my main question is, so going back to what we already said. Jay did seem very passionate about what he was saying, but he still had moments of feeling emotional. And I felt like even when he was explaining himself, it was almost like someone knowing that what they did was probably bad, or a lot of people viewed it as not being good or favorable, and he was just like kind of trying to get himself out of trouble. Like it almost kind of felt like he didn't actually feel okay with what he did, which I thought was a cool twist. Like he said that he had to do it because they're his family. So it's not like I wanted to do this. I chose my family. It was I had to. They're my family. You're not. Like it felt more forced.
And that's why this, you can just tell immediately that this is just a completely different era, because the little details in the stories now usually wouldn't mean anything, or they would and you would forget about it because it would, too much time would pass.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's just everything seems to connect. There's always something that will be referenced or is going to, be a foreshadow to
Mm-hmm.
a future match or a few whatever. And with this bloodline stuff, like you can see, like really have Roman already have his next opponent
Yeah.
leading up to SummerSlam, would say, in Jey Uso.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna okay. Obviously, he's gonna get the rematch with Cody at Backlash. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So mark
Yeah.
that off your calendar. But then after that, they can't go 3. I just
Yeah.
don't
No.
think that they can go 3, but year 2, we'll do the third. With the next pay per view, I don't think Jay should cost him at Mania. I think it should be a Backlash thing, and that's where you now plant the seeds. You can build up their little feud into SummerSlam because it's in Detroit. Big event this year that they, I think, already have been hyping up in a way. And it gets Roman a feud that doesn't have a championship involved. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not some bullshit car crash with Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. It'll be
So,
interesting because I think that this is another situation that has many layers that they can go with. It could either be, one on one against Jay, and then it's the bloodline versus Jay. There are rumors, like we talked about, that they want Solo versus Roman at some point, so we could see that. And like we talked about in that video, um that would be really interesting because we don't really hear from Solo, so there's so many ways they can take that. It'd be cool in a way too if they had it the bloodline versus Roman, like they all turn on him because they take Jay's side instead of Roman's side because they don't want to be like abuse victims anymore, basically.
and their
um
other blood, like you can make they like split blood, and
yeah,
it's
they
kind of
could.
ridiculous that I just said split blood, but you get what I mean
No, I
by
get what you mean.
yes,
So, yeah, I think that there's like
split blood.
a lot of hidden meaning here, and I think that's definitely like a Triple H era thing because
Oh yeah.
since the beginning, basically, he had things going on in the background that you needed to pay attention to. I mean, even just on Raw when Rick Boogs and Elias were talking in the background, it was Cody and Kevin Owens. So I didn't notice it live either.
I didn't either. I saw
When
it on
they said
Instagram.
who's in the background, I was like, didn't we already see this? Like,
I thought it
we
was Bray
know.
Wyatt.
No, I knew that it was what's the guy's name? Why can't I think of his name? The guy he's challenged the match to.
He
You know,
what?
the guy that he's facing, that Elias is facing.
Oh,
Why
Bronson Reed.
Okay, I was like, I was saying something in my head and it was like Brunson. I was like, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that that's what they were referring to. I was like, well, we already know this, so I was very confused. I had to rewatch the clip because I was like, what are we looking at here? So
Yeah.
I think this was definitely one of those moments. And I wanted to ask too, how do you like they're really intertwining Cody's feud with Roman, and I guess now the bloodline, because now they're all harping on him and talking about him, even Paul Heyman, which we'll get to in a second. And Sammy's continued feud with the bloodline. Do you like that they're
Yes.
like so involved and how do you think that's going to like impact Mania? Like what are we going to be doing? What are we going to be seeing with all of this in the
The
next?
collapse of the bloodline is happening at Mania. That is the
Yeah, that's what
like
we've said. Yeah.
I equivocated to Avengers and that Infinity War saga, whatever it is, where the beginning stages was Ultron and their first one, whatever, and then you have Infinity War where they lose, which
Mhm.
that would be like the Bloodline War games, and then Royal Rumble, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, this is Endgame, where it's gonna end. There's gonna be a lot of moments where it's really gonna pull on the fans' heartstrings because it technically you could spread it out throughout the 2 days. You could have, obviously you're gonna have Cody Roman on night 2 to end it. Maybe you have night 1 not to end it because I would give one of the women's titles the main event that night.
Yeah.
But you
I
have,
know. Yeah.
that, I don't know what segment or what part you would call it, but that part of the show where it's right in the middle and it's like that. All right, this can be a big match to get the crowd hype back up, whatever.
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that's when you do it. But throughout the entire weekend, you do mini segments with the bloodline,
Yeah. I
with
think you have
everyone,
to.
like really build it up,
Yeah.
because this is what it like. The bloodline is the last living thing, quote unquote, living thing from the Vince McMahon era, and everything has pretty much been torn down except this, because you can't. You
Yeah.
really just couldn't end it. It's the best story in wrestling. You did
Yeah.
get one thing right. So the best way to end it is by this grand finale. And the
Mm.
grand finale is going to be at WrestleMania. And you need to have, honestly, I'm all right with them doing as much as possible with it, because this is like the last that we're gonna be able to enjoy of the bloodline.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
I'm
I
excited for it.
yeah, I think that people don't realize it's one of those things that once there's no more bloodline, people will miss it. You know, like
You're
you
gonna
might
miss it.
not be a fan of any of them, whether it's just in general you're not a fan, or you're not a fan because they're the bad guys and you're not supposed to like the bad guys. Like I do think that people will acknowledge that they miss when we don't see any more of them, because it's become such an integral part of Raw and SmackDown for a few years now, but it definitely over this like last year and a half. So, um, but yeah, I like it too. I just think it adds, I don't know, it's an interesting element to have Cody involved now. And I think part of it is kind of him and Sammy are similar. They're both the underdogs, and
Most
trying to
over baby
overcome the
faces.
final boss that is Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. So I find it really interesting, and I'm very curious to see what they end up doing over the next like only what 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So before we get off of the Bloodline, I want to talk about Paul Heyman because other than him being a little bit weird when he first spoke to the Usos, that's backstage interview with Kayla Braxton was something that we haven't seen from Paul Heyman before. I feel like he
Worried.
was very distracted. Kayla had to re-ask her question, and then he said he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just distracted," and exactly like what I wrote in the headline, it did seem very much like that he's now expressing that he is in fact worried, which is not something that he has done um up until now. I think that he did talk a little bit about, didn't he mention that with Sammy or Logan? It was something like that. He had mentioned like, "Oh, they have nothing to lose," or something. Like he was making it seem like he was a little bit worried, but this I felt like he was going on that he never wanted Roman to have to face Cody Rhodes. That was like basically a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
And said that Cody has no chance at Mania because the truth and the emotional baggage that he will be carrying into the show will basically defeat him before he even gets in the ring. But based on Paul's behavior, I don't know if he's just kind of putting this out there trying to convince himself or if he's saying it to try and convince others, but based off of how he was talking, I don't know that the bloodline's feeling too good right now.
No, what is happening is Paul Heyman is seeing Judgment Day in the rearview mirror, or rearview mirror. It's approaching, like, and this is why I love the story so much, is because you would have usually Paul Heyman do one of those, like, he is just one, he's got nothing to lose, and like that's the to keep Roman in check, we'll say. It's
Yeah.
a good, like, hey, don't take him lightly, like, you're still the alpha, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Now this is like the genuine, and it's as genuine as possible, because this is, I would say, the biggest threat Roman's had to his title since Brock. And that's kind of a big deal, and it's different. It's not the Cody Rhodes who was here before, and Paul knows that, Roman knows that now. Like, they're really steering into the skid with that, and I love it. I think it's great.
And I think the I would add something to what you're saying. So I agree. But then I think at the same time, the reason that I would say Paul's feeling this way is because he's finally, like, it's like he's finally able to see the clear cracks in the bloodline, where before it felt like a brick wall that no one could get through because, okay, you got Roman, but then you have all of these people behind him. Like, there's nothing that can get through this.
Mhm.
And now that we're seeing, the whole thing with Jay, and that the fact that it took weeks for him to finally re-show up and, like, I don't know, pledge his allegiance to the bloodline.
Bizarre.
And even then it was still like we said earlier, still didn't seem completely genuine, felt more forced, like there's something going on there. And I think Paul usually was probably just trying to look past those types of things because, he's like the number one cheerleader and he's going to believe in Roman. But now that Roman's not been around, I think Paul's kind of seeing things a little bit clearer, and that's adding to the worry about Cody, other than the fact that Cody's the hottest thing in wrestling right now. Like, that's going to be a challenge for Roman. But then seeing pieces are falling off their kingdom, I imagine is adding to that. So very interesting. I liked that. And I like how much they're, like we said, that they're bringing up Cody, because we need to, especially when we're so close to Mania. It needs to become like such a big priority.
I feel like we're going to see Cody a lot more in SmackDown.
I am here for it, because if he becomes champion, then I want him on SmackDown all the time and Raw, because that is what a champion does. Yeah. So our first match of the night was the Fatal 5-Way, and the winner would go on to face Gunther at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. And I felt like this was a good opener match. Oh, and we did have, Kofi Kingston got hurt apparently from a dive, I think, from I believe it was Drew McIntyre. So he was replaced, which we kind of thought, by Xavier Woods in this match. So it was Xavier Woods, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Karrion Kross, and
our guy.
And our guy
LA Knight.
He was on point with that. Like when is it Samantha, when she was introducing him? It's like he knew, like, before she said it.
He's got
like,
that. That is down to a science.
Yeah, it was so good. So I would say one thing I want to say before we get into all the nitty gritty. Shout out to Scarlett. That's all I want to say. Shout out to Scarlett. So that's all I have to say about that. But I would say basically that the match was overall, it was good, and it was another match that I felt like everyone kind of had their own moments, and it kind of, other than the fact that we've talked about this, we talked about it last week, and what we thought was going to happen and who we thought was going to win. I felt like if you weren't someone who thinks about wrestling in that way and you're just purely a fan that just watches, what you see on TV, it kind of felt like you weren't sure who was actually going to win, which I thought.
I had zero idea. I had no idea who they were going to pick to win.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about who we thought made the most sense, which we said McIntyre or Sheamus. So it was kind of cool to see all of them have their own moments in the match to make it seem like, okay, no, because they were hyping up Xavier because he had tweeted out stuff like, oh, I'm waiting for my moment.
Very heartfelt thing.
Yeah. And Karrion Kross has returned LA Knight is like, okay, well, I want my a match at Mania in Hollywood because I am LA. You can't have a match without me. So
he makes a valid point.
He does, but we'll discuss LA Knight in a second.
Point.
So it was a good match. I thought it was a really good match for what they were fighting for. But the ending, I want to ask your opinion on the ending. So McIntyre and Sheamus both get pinfalls, and both their arms are raised because technically they both won. But the part that confuses me, and you said you would explain it, I guess, why there were two referees. And my only original thought about it was there was two referees because there's 5 men, but how many times have we seen like 6-man tag matches, gauntlet matches, like lumberjack matches where there's one ref? Like, I'm kind of confused.
It's more for the show of it is one where like you can have, I would say, 2 scenes in one. Like you have one thing going on over there and they can make a count. And then, immediately following, over at the other side of the ring, you have two more guys fighting and they get up into it. Like, so you can have a ref there. So there's no slowing down, if
But
that
see,
makes
that's the
sense.
thing in like Elimination Chamber. There's one referee in Elimination Chamber.
I know.
So
And
that's why I'm
then
saying it just felt like if you didn't know what the ending was going to be, it's almost like watching it back now. It's easy to predict it because why are there multiple
yeah.
refs? Because um, I I'm okay with the ending in the sense that the two that won are the two that we thought were going to win. And I said that if they weren't going to be the winners, then it seemed like maybe they were setting them up for to have a Mania match. And obviously that doesn't appear to be happening because they are going to be facing each other on SmackDown next week to become the opponent for Gunther at Mania. But I am curious because of how they're setting this up. And we had the random moment that they showed us backstage where the two of them were arguing and the brutes came in and were like trying to break it up and whatever. I really wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a triple threat
That's what
at
it's
Mania.
going to be.
Yeah. And then
The fans
Gunther's going to
want.
win. Gunther's going to win. And then that translates to Sheamus versus McIntyre feud. Right?
And that's one thing that I've seen a real shift in is that usually those double counts, double pins, it's like, oh, great. Okay, they're doing a triple threat. Like, I get
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
This is one where people genuinely do not care about the match next week. They just want to see Sheamus and McIntyre and Gunther, which I don't really give a fuck what happens next week in that match. They could do
Yeah.
a double count out for all I care. It could be a disqualification. But
Mm-hmm.
if we get McIntyre, Sheamus, and Gunther at Mania, yeah, take me there.
Yeah, see, like I would rather have a triple threat or it be McIntyre Gunther. That's all I want. I don't because I was gonna ask, does anyone actually want to see Sheamus and Gunther part 3? Like
Not right
as
now.
great, and that's the thing is it's kind of like what they did with the Street Profits and the Usos. Their first match was a masterpiece in tag
It was
tag
so
team
good, yeah.
competition. Their second one, great, but did not live anywhere near the hype of the first one. And so you kind of leave feeling disappointed, but it has nothing to do with how well they did because they obviously are two tag teams that are
You're
phenomenal.
just ready to move on, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like it didn't live up to it and it didn't give you that same feeling from the first time. And I feel like that's kind of how it is with Sheamus and Gunther. Like their first match was amazing. Their second one wasn't bad, but it was still just like, okay, you kind of can't repeat magic. You guys got magic that first time. Like, don't try to make it again. And so I feel if it was Sheamus versus Gunther, I'd watch because I love Gunther and Imperium, but I just feel like I'd be a little disappointed. I'd rather see it be a triple threat or McIntyre in a singles match.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's the overall like feeling amongst people,
I'm
but
seeing a lot of people wanting a triple threat.
I'm
They want a
assuming that's
triple
the
threat,
direction that they're going to go in just
as we
because of
should.
what they're doing, and I'm fine with that because I am intrigued by McIntyre Sheamus feud. I feel like you want hard hitting matches. There you go, and so that would be
That's
great.
gonna
So
be a match of big meaty men slapping meat.
that would be a banger after banger
Banger
after
after
banger.
banger after banger.
And then we finally got the first inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame of 2023. It was announced as Rey Mysterio, which I thought was really cool. But before we get into everything else, how do you feel about currently working wrestlers being inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I love it because it adds that other element to wrestling that a Hall of Famer can still fight.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's one of those things where people like us get why they're Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Because they're already gonna be anyways. Like they don't need to. And wrestling's one of those things where you technically, once you're in, you're in. It's like the mob. So you can always come back and do an indie show. I mean, look at fucking Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Wrestled his last match, and then 2 weeks later was saying, "I still have
I
one more
know.
in me."
And
Like
it's like just know when to stop, Brett
do it.
Favre.
Just fucking sit on the couch.
Yeah.
My thing is that it's okay. It's wrestling, so really anything kind of goes. And I do like hearing, you know what it is too? I like how it's like Hall of Fame or this, and you're facing a younger guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it adds another, I would say, accolade and that side of things to the bringing up and development of a younger talent.
What I'm wondering is if the reason that they're doing it this year, other than maybe this is Ray retiring soon, I don't know. It's possible it might not be something. Or they did it purposely because of the intention of him versus Dominic at Mania, and this was just like an extra
I saw
layer to that whole thing that's going on right
whatever
now.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't. I'm guessing because you know he's announced he comes out. He's about to start talking. Judge Dominic's music hits. I guess I was gonna say Judgment Day, but it's Dominic's, and he interrupts him and just goes on an insulting spree. Blah blah blah. Says that he didn't know that they let like old men into the Hall of Fame. And I want to be like, you're such a Gen Zer. Like, who gets into the Hall of Fame other than like old men? Like, and I mean old by like wrestling standards.
He's
They're not
so
putting like
funny. He's
prime
such a
Austin
good
Theory
heel.
in the Hall of Fame at 25. Like that's not what's happening. And then he said that he should have been Eddie's son, but I think that was post match. But we'll get into that.
No, I lost when he said I should have been Eddie's son
It was
or
just
something.
yeah.
I lost it and I was like, finally, they made a reference to it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go. We're cooking. Like, this is, I'm telling you, opening Mania is going to be Rey Mysterio versus Dominic. And it's going to be going to be a special moment. And I
It'd
think
be good.
that's why they're doing along with the 20-year thing. And Ray's like, yeah, I probably should move into a producer role or something in the next few years. So this is a good time to do it. And it also opens the doors where like you get a younger, lucha libre wrestler coming up
Mm-hmm.
and Ray's a producer or whatever, but it's like, oh, I could still do one more match. Or like Rey Mysterio will be in a rumble, like
Yeah.
it's all right. It'll always work itself out.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see how they bring this within Dominic because Judgment Day and Legado del Fantasma, they finally are
Before you
back.
say this, I do want to make a point, and I
Okay.
want this out there. If I fucking see Dominic Mysterio ruin this Hall of Fame induction with him and
Oh.
Mommy coming out, I I will burn you to get to the ground. To quote The
I
Office.
would hate to see that because they don't do storylines like at the Hall
Yeah,
of Fame.
that's a safe
So
zone.
it should if they're gonna do that, do a backstage segment, a pre-taped moment, the way that they did with the holidays. Like do something like that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
wouldn't like it's not something that I like that the fans can kind of get involved in because I feel like it's supposed to be a celebratory event.
it
I
really
mean,
is. Yeah,
it reminds me of I don't remember what year it was, but they were showing footage of John Cena and how many wishes that he had granted with Make a Wish and people were booing. And there's like a mom on screen talking about how her son was the first kid to get a wish granted by John Cena, and it was all that he could talk about until he passed, and it makes me sad because it's so horrible. And the fact that people were booing,
yeah.
it's like
You
I
can't.
understand that you don't like John Cena, but that's so inappropriate when there's literal dying children and their last wish is to meet John Cena. So that's the thing. Like I would hate for a storyline to kind of like ruin that moment. And I don't even know that Dominic would want to do that because at the end of the day, that's
No.
still his dad,
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
Dominic is playing a very good character. Let's just get
Yes.
that out in the
Yeah.
open. What he's doing is absolutely fantastic, and it's brewing into something where he can be a potential star one day. However, what he's saying is not true and does not
Yeah.
truly believe that he's a deadbeat dad. That'd be like
Yeah.
me going up and being like, "Hey, Dad, I fucking hate you." Like,
Yeah.
no, like I'm not gonna do
You
that.
were never there for me, even though you were, but you weren't actually.
I'm not, like
Yeah.
we get it. So,
Yeah.
and I also found out today it's that Conan will be inducting him.
And
And I was
that's
like,
his
okay, I get it,
godfather,
WCW days and whatever. So I watched an interview with Denise, I forget her last name.
Saucedo.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I like her. Yeah.
And she interviewed Conan about Rey Mysterio. And Conan and Mysterio like grew up in the business together. And Conan told a really good story where he would go to like bars and different places and he'd have to sneak Ray in with a mask because they thought he was underage. And
Oh,
like he'd have to like pull the like, no, he's like a little person, like, don't.
he's 5'5". He's
But like, but this was when he was like 17, 18.
okay, but still, like
He
that's not
wasn't
like
five
he's
five
not
then.
a
He was like
little
five
person.
foot 4'11".
That's crazy.
But the point is that like they would get like the same guy that is trying to, deny him. Ray wrestles, and then that guy is over there trying to get his autograph and take a picture. Like
Mm,
it was one of those things that you learn just how long he's been an
yeah.
underdog for, and it's like, who better to induct you into the one place that people probably would tell you never should be part of than the person who's been there, and believed in you from day one. I like that's the type of shit that I love. And if that moment gets ruined, I'm going to be a very, very angry person.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up like a massive Rey Mysterio fan, but obviously entertained by him. My sister was a massive fan, so like I paid attention to him. Obviously, other than watching wrestling and he was on, I was excited to see his matches because he was a great performer. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to his induction, and then we know that it's going to be emotional because Eddie is going to be brought up, so it's just going to be like tears, 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 and
Oh,
so
man,
yeah, I
yeah.
would hate for them to like have that happen because as entertaining as it might be, it's not a good moment for that. Like I just
No.
not. There's other ways you can do it and still get a lot of people seeing it without having to do it when he's actually standing there like being inducted.
Yeah.
Um so we did see Judgment Day versus Legado del Fantasma. Like I said, Legado is back after being gone off TV for however many weeks at this
I'm
point.
so happy they're back. I love them.
And they're baby faces, which is like
Good. Well,
it's
they're
like
they're
it's
playing into the Mysterio. That's why.
well, yeah, so that's why it's like they're kind of in between right now. I think it's like maybe after Mania they're gonna go back to being like the evil
Mhm.
faction, one of them on SmackDown. And Judgment Day wins because they have to at this
They have
point.
to.
And then Dom gets on the mic post match and says like I just want to have a man to man conversation, but Judgment Day leaves but doesn't leave, and Legato stands on the outside to like protect Ray. And Dom just gets on the mic, just completely taunting Ray, and that's when he says, with his slick little mouth, Dom the Con, that he should have been Eddie's son. And I was just like, Dom, you know the buttons to push on your dad. Okay, that was rough. That was
Oh,
a
that hit
traumatic
hard.
time in his life, Dom. But anyway, I thought that was
Your
just kind of
custody hung in the balance at a super,
I know. Can you
super
imagine them
SummerSlam
doing
show.
that now? Like that's the kind of thing that was like people would be trying to ban WWE off TV.
Oh my God, absolutely. You would.
Which is like
Oh,
it's like it's not even that bad, it's like controversial, but it's like so ridiculous that it's
yeah.
laughable, but people get offended over,
It's worst
virtually
shit
everything. So
on television.
yeah. So definitely looking forward to that and who else they're going to announce because there is rumors of Batista,
I did see
which
that.
I am here for that.
Yeah, it's time. I would
Oh
agree
yeah,
that
he's
it's
not coming
time.
back. He's not coming back.
No,
He's
he's
off
done.
being a bigger movie star in a lot of ways than The Rock at some point, at
He
least.
is, and he's doing well. I mean, he was Drax in
Well, no,
Guardians.
but he was also like the star in that new movie, like that
Oh,
cabin movie.
Knives
That's
Out or something.
yeah, the scary movie thing where the
Oh
people
yeah.
had to do it was kind of almost from the commercials seemed like Saw movies. Like you have to do
Oh yeah.
something or this person's gonna die, like that
Mhm.
type of thing. So good for Dave. Good for
Good for
Dave.
Dave.
And then I just had a question. What is the point of the Viking
I
Raiders
don't
existence?
know. As the champion, I should know the answers to all things. However, I have been locked out of Valhalla with answers because I have no fucking idea what we're doing. They're great, and like
No.
I really just don't care about them, honestly. And I'm sorry, but I don't.
Yeah, and the issue that I have, other than the obvious character gimmick of the 80s that I think is ridiculous in 2023, the the thing that I don't really understand about them is that, they were hyped for weeks before they came back. And then the same thing with Valhalla, like it was, oh my god, and it's like we're supposed to care, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they keep getting into these like mini feuds that never have a proper ending, and nothing ever happens, and then they just move on to a new tag team. So that's another part that I don't understand the point of them, because there's plenty of people that you can put together in a random tag team and have a tag team match. Like, they don't have to be the Viking Raiders. Like, they don't have to be this official tag team for a tag team match to be seen. And for me, it's like literally nobody cares about them. They don't
I'm
even
so
care enough
sorry,
to
but I
boo
don't.
them. And it's nothing against them. Like, obviously, the things that they can do in the ring, especially, it's like crazy for
For
their
their size,
size.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So it's
Yes.
like no knock on them for that. It's just that, like, I think there are other ways that they could make them come off as scary, dominating, badass dudes that can like hang in the ring and do crazy things for their size without it being so overly characterized as old world Vikings. Like, I just don't, it's just like, it doesn't
I,
work.
I got a little hypothetical for you.
Okay.
What if you put the Viking Raiders with somebody?
Gallus.
No. I mean like a singles person.
With a singles person? What do you mean?
Like make a faction.
Oh, so there's 3 of them?
Yep.
But who do you have in mind?
Carrying Cross.
I mean, eh, I don't know. I really like what Karrion Kross and Scarlett's entrance, but I've gotten
It's a
bored of
plot.
Karrion.
Yeah, no, that is because of no creative direction, and I'm pushing that or any issue I have with it till after Mania, and maximum length of time is after Backlash
Well, because
because it's just
even
weird.
his little feud with Ray kind of just abruptly
That
stopped
was a
too.
filler. I knew exactly what that was and didn't
It was
care.
just but it's one of those things, like, I wasn't necessarily invested, but I was like kind of intrigued when they started bringing in the tarot cards and the like Scarlet was being used more. Like, I was kind of intrigued, but yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, I think he's another one that maybe he's just ending up being a roster spot taker. You know what I mean? Like, he's not really going to become anything. He's just, but that's kind of disappointing because like he was one of the very first re-signings that Triple
Yo,
H had. So what?
what if he teams with Corbin and then Corbin becomes Lone Wolf again?
I mean, I'd be for that.
And then boom,
That
they become
entrance
a
would
tag
work for
team.
him.
That's an idea.
Make him a
Make him as
tag
the
team. I think carrying like I know that he's gotten kind of boring, but yeah, I think sometimes it's just not working in a singles style. Like, he could
okay.
thrive as a tag team.
He would. Him and Corbin would be awesome.
Yeah, they're very similar. That would be cool. Very interesting. Now I'm gonna keep thinking about that.
I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last little bit to talk about of SmackDown was a really awkward backstage segment between Charlotte and Adam Pearce that made me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not because they did anything inappropriate or anything, but it was just
No,
like
yeah.
so horribly acted by Charlotte and just like so corny. I was like, girl, I need you to be a heel. I need you to be a heel because this is just not working. But she told Adam that, she is wanting a match. And Adam said that he would find her an opponent. And that opponent ends up being Shotzi.
You couldn't have found anyone better. Like, no knock on Shotzi, but like you couldn't have found anyone else. Like Lacey Evans wasn't around.
What that was something I wanted to say too. We'll get into that in a second. So yeah, so it ended up being Shotzi, which I was like, okay, cool. That's not something that we have seen. And I don't want to get super into it because I don't want to be classified as like a hater or anything. But Shotzi needs some help still. And I
Yes.
believe that she has all the tools in her bag to be a significant part of the women's division, but she just needs more time. And I feel like this was another example of that, unfortunately. But I thought of Lacey Evans too, but I'm wondering what's going on with that because we knew about the drama with her and when she's someone who stays in character all the time, which is not very popular anymore for people to do
Yeah.
that. It's very 90s. And she did that to the man that was, he had Down syndrome or some sort of
Yeah, he
special
had
needs.
Down syndrome, and it's just
And
not a good
so
look
that
for him.
became like a huge thing on Twitter. So she received a lot of backlash for that. And then I think she was on the next week and she did it to a different like grown man. Um, and then hasn't been on TV since. So I don't know if it correlates, but like she's been
I
gone
don't
for
know
a
either, but
while.
you're connecting some dots.
I'm just
Maybe
wondering
the
if that's
correct
what it
outlet.
has
Who
to do
knows?
with. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any significance to it, if it has anything stemming from that, because it did blow up online and people were very upset about it. I mean,
Posting a
she
lot
tried
on
to,
Instagram. I still follow her.
yeah, I mean, she's tried to defend herself and said that it wasn't a big deal. I think that, to a certain extent, she has an excuse because she is someone who stays in character. I just think that, you could have picked someone better to do that too, maybe, because then no one would have been talking about it. But
Maybe the
I
grown man who's just being an asshole.
yeah, just, or even, like even if it was just like a little girl or a little boy,
Little
someone who,
girl's fine.
yeah, it doesn't
Makes
matter. You just didn't
sense.
have to do it to like the one person in that area that you did it with. It just
Yeah.
didn't need to happen. So I am, yeah, I was thinking about why she was gone recently. I noticed that. But instead Charlotte does end up bas- basically just dominating the entire time. Rhea comes out mid-match and seems to distract Charlotte just for a brief second, but she does obviously win with the figure eight. And then they get on the mic and they start talking to each other, just trading insults. And I'm glad that we're seeing Rhea on SmackDown. So there's still some of this interacting going. But I'm curious how you feel about their buildup because I don't feel that invested in their storyline right now.
If I watched their first match at Mania,
Yeah.
I would be more invested because it's a lot of
You'll get
that.
there before this Mania.
Huh? Oh, okay.
You'll yeah, you'll get there before. So
Which I was gonna bring it up to end the show, but I'll bring it up now. I'm at 21. I'm starting it right after this. I
are you
have
off tomorrow?
technically I have to go to a seafood show.
Oh, are there
So it's like
seafood? Is the food dancing? Is it performing for you?
no, I'm gonna see the food and eat it.
Oh.
Oh no, I'm kidding. It's just like it's a showcase to like show different fish companies and stuff.
Oh, I thought it would be cooler if they were like in beautiful gowns.
Right? That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'll go to one of those shows one day.
Okay.
But no, but the point is I don't have to go until like 12 and I'm only there for a couple hours. So I'm technically like off and I'm treating it like I'm off. So that means we can binge pay-per-views till
Mm.
1, 2 in the morning like we like to do.
Mhm.
So I'll get to 21 and maybe start 22. You were right about 20. Holy shit. I
Banger.
forgot how good. And 19 through 23, maybe 24. 25 is good too. 26. I'm gonna have some great manias to watch.
Mhm.
Next year we're gonna make this into a bigger thing. That's what we do. We grow. Because 40.
So you're thinking that if you watch their first matchup, you would be more interested.
More invested because it feels like it's an extension of
Mhm.
it. A lot of what they're saying, a lot of the build up with Dom and stuff, the way they're doing it, it feels like it's not, they're rekindling and it's something you can pick up like a sitcom.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, if you watch the first match, you'd understand a little bit more of what they're saying. I think it would make it a lot easier to deal with how corny and stiff Charlotte is as a babyface.
Mhm.
If she wants to make a comment and go the typical flair route, but you can't. And especially with Rhea, I think there is some I would say bad blood because of the first match. So that's one reason I don't care. Not care. I take that back. It's more I'm not as invested as I should be.
Yeah, I think it would have been more interesting had they gone the same route that they appear to be going with Bianca and Asuka, where neither of them are the bad guy. And people are just going to be able to choose who they want to, cheer for, who they don't want to cheer for. I feel like that could be kind of could have been an interesting dynamic to heel Charlotte versus heel Rhea Ripley. I feel like that could have been kind of cool because it would have been on the opposite spectrum of Asuka and Bianca. And I think it would be kind of nice to see that type of matchup more. I mean, there's still time for, Bianca or Asuka to, I guess, do something that gets them hated. But, I understand the whole you need a good guy and you need a bad guy. But, people have their favorites anyway. I mean, why do you think bad guys are cheered? It's because not everyone hates them. But
Kevin Owens
yeah,
should be booed on a nightly basis, and I will continue to cheer for him until my vocal cords go out.
who?
Kevin Owens.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I understand. I've always enjoyed cheering for the heels when I would
I
be at a
mean,
show.
look who your favorite wrestler of all time is.
John Cena? What?
Oh, I was gonna say
Who?
the bad guy, Chico.
Oh, yeah. But I never got to see him. So,
True.
you know what's really annoying is I would think it was, I don't know if it was like a year or two after I moved to Arizona that they announced that the NWO was going to be on Raw in Seattle.
Oh, that's just
And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I always went to the shows in Seattle and then I would even go to the shows in Portland because it was only like a 3-hour drive south for
that's
me.
not bad. Yeah.
So I would go to those. And so I remember being like watching that Raw and I was so upset because I was like, are you kidding me? Like it wasn't even, within driving distance of where I am. So I was like, are
No,
you?
that's a far distance.
Yeah, that was just straight up mean. But that's the closest I've ever gotten to seeing that, like Scott or the NWO, unfortunately.
I never
But
saw any of those guys either. Sadly.
yeah, the only ones that I've seen that are like big time now, I guess, like I saw The Rock, but that was during the Rock versus Cena the
I've never
first
seen The
time.
Rock live.
I saw him he didn't wrestle, but he came. Yeah, no, I kind of forgot. I was going through older photos and then I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I did see The Rock." And I think it was for their first Mania match, I want to say. Um and I have seen Triple H, which was weird because that was another one where like when I started going to shows a lot, he hadn't been like wrestling like all the time or he was in or doing whatever. But yeah, I haven't seen a lot of like super big legends. Oh, Bret Hart, I guess I saw Bret Hart.
That's a big legend, but in a
Yeah,
different
that
way.
is. I forgot about that.
I did see seeing DX was cool. Never saw Undertaker. I still haven't
Me
seen Stone
neither.
Cold, any of those
Did I
guys.
see
Mick
Undertaker?
Foley I saw though. Get this, Mick Foley versus Ric Flair I Quit match.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
that's crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen the Undertaker actually. I feel like I would have to go through and check.
Look, David said you were there for Kung Pao Bitch.
Oh, okay. There we go. Then that was the one that I was there for. And that was a very tough time for me because I loved The Rock, but Cena's my man.
I
So
booed Cena so bad when he feuded The
wow.
Rock.
I'm gonna
Do
clip this
not.
and save this forever
You
and
are. I
blackmail
will
you.
never. I can't cheer against The Rock. I can't.
I can't cheer against Cena.
There you
I
go.
mean, not gonna lie, I think I have before, but it wasn't like me actively cheering against him. It was like I wouldn't mind if he lost, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like to Nexus.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nexus was
Oh,
not. No,
it's a new day. It's a
that's not
new
Nexus.
generation. Is that Core?
That's Legacy.
All right, well, that's a good place to end the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the SmackDown Breakdown. Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms, on Twitter at Pat_Pitts and at SMarshXO, and on Instagram at Pitsy35 and at SMarsh_. And then if you're watching on our tweeters, Sarah's YouTube channel, we got a lot of clips going up there. All right. Oh, you want to say you got a finger up? I'll let
Yes.
you speak.
Clips from Thursday show about like our favorite WrestleMania stages or whatever is coming soon.
I have those.
Okay. And then also our stream times are going to be changing now that daylight savings is tomorrow. So now we should be going, I believe, at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes,
So a bit earlier, but we got to because I am going to be back on Pacific time. So it'll be early. It'll be 4 o'clock for me. So for all of you people who maybe enjoy us doing it later at night, I am sorry. We will be moving till 7 p.m. for at least the next 6 months.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice because getting up at 5 in the morning and I'm not this is not a complaint by any means. However, it's just a little bit nicer to record earlier so that
No, I'm gonna enjoy it too. I'll enjoy it too because I need to do clips and stuff. But then at night, I'm usually like writing articles, so it's a hard balance. But I just wanted to make sure that we put that in there because I think the WrestleMania show clips will be fun for people to watch too.
Oh yeah, those would be good. Those were really good to edit, and we got some fun stuff there. So you gotta stay tuned. You gotta keep following us, and it's and more of that. So be on the lookout. Share with everyone. Go follow us, and subscribe to the podcast as well on all podcasting platforms. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. God bless. Remember that you can do it. All you gotta do is try. See you next time.